Well, being a professor of the university and a shareholder of a UNESCO chair regarding the heritage, I think it was the reason that they challenged me to answer this tricky question, I must say. The first temptation I had, it was to organize a kind of descriptors, to provide some concepts, even to organize some tables, but I think it was much more secure, but perhaps a little bit boring. So what I decided is to recover two personal lived stories. The first one, it ended 3 months or 2 months ago. And the other one I'm still living with. So the first story I have to tell you, it's a colleague of the university, Christina, is a chemistry expert in pigments for textiles. She challenged me to try to answer, in fact, 2 questions. The first question is, could a traditional worker that works in the loom, a weaver, could she live in his life, and which conditions she need from institutional and economic point of view to live with some dignity? The second thing, and the second question was, okay, there is a kind of business plan for a work like this? Okay, then for trying to answer these 2 questions, we decided to, with the support of the regional authorities, to do a contract for a weaver. Here is she, this weaver, and to do a contract with this weaver. Teresa is his name, a woman of 62, mother of 4, living alone. She knows how to do all things with the loom. I mean, from the washing to the spinning to the teasel, and of course to weaving, she knows do everything. And for the product she could sell, it was in the master plan established that she could sell the natural wood, dyed or not. She could sell DVDs, postcards, things like this. The clothes, of course, in the end. And also the experience. This is important for tourism point of view, for cultural tourism, if you want. Okay, so we begin. And my problem was that in the end of the day, I don't like what she's producing. She produces things like this. I don't like this. For my point of view, if it is clothes for men or something like this, I never could use them. And I'm sure that the 2 daughters I have, the 30 daughters, 36, 30 years old, they never could use also the things that she produced. Somehow I could say, if I could say so, they're ugly. So we decided to do something. Look, I must say, Teresa is a very powerful character. She knows all the process of working at the loom. Even from a cultural point of view, his background is very strong. And she's a very articulated person. So we call the students from the master design of the university, try to improve the product she could produce in the end. Okay, they become more interesting, but this raised me 2 questions. My first question was, do I am producing traditional, or in fact I'm producing old-fashioned products? What I'm doing, embodying, this means really embodying tradition in the producing process or not? Okay, I don't want to answer right away. And I move to my second story. I will come back to the answers in the end. My second story is absolutely different, in fact. My second story is I must go to Morocco, where I am a trustee of a foundation for, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. This foundation deals with poverty. In fact, our foundation begins in the 90s because what we were doing is in poor neighborhoods, we were in these poor neighborhoods, we were trying to improve, to support the poor guys to accede books for studying. It's what we do there. With time, as you can imagine, people coming from the south of Sahara, they ask for help because we are in poor neighborhoods. So at the beginning, what we have is people asking for support for us. And some years ago, I think something like 10 years ago, in the festival of a gymnasium, we invited them to do some traditional clothes for them to go to sell it at this festival in the end of the year in this gymnasium. They have done it, and they sell everything. They were very surprised. We discussed a little bit, and we offered them a space to produce traditional things. Look, we have just the goodwill of as designers, amateurs, should I say goodwill, no skill. So they begin to produce things, and in the end of the day, it was interesting because they could sell a lot of things. The prices were nice. The materials were not cheap, were not expensive, sorry. But in the end of the day, it is comprehensive that she could not pay their bills like this, or living with some dignity. Okay, let me just to make a stop here just to tell you what's this foundation. I still want to say something about the foundation, if you don't mind. This foundation is called Fondation Orient-Occident, East-West Foundation. This is the headquarters of the foundation. It's a nice house because we believe that poor people like beauty. And they like, in fact, beauty. The second thing is this foundation, with time, begin to work especially with people that come from the south of Africa to Europe, migrants. It is most of the things that we work with. And some years ago, we decided that we only work with migrants and to provide better conditions for them to live, what is possible to do, in fact. The interesting part is that the foundation, with time, begin to be responsible for the refugees because these people is understood as a refugee. In fact, today we are paid by the High Commissioner of the United Nations for Refugees to do this work. And interesting, I should say that with times we mixed with political issues. For instance, we have launched an important campaign against the children that were servants, and the law was changed. That's why we win the French Prize of Human Rights, because the 2009 award for this campaign that we launched there. Okay, but we have 12 women there working with textiles. What we have done with them? And my story is interesting because I think, at least for me, it is interesting, because one day, just by chance, a friend of us appears there, and this friend of us was an expert of a very well-known high fashion corporation, and we asked, we have the will, but not the skill. But perhaps you don't have the will, but you have the skill. Can you help us? And with this help, we begin to organize things. Look, the first part of we have done, it was things like this, professional training. It was we have done at the beginning. And then we moved to textiles and to organize this in a much more professional way. Okay, the interesting part, if you don't mind, also in the middle of this textile thing, we are organizing a festival of music of the foundation, one of the most interesting things. And the people that go to the festival that they're organizing the foundation is a street festival. They can see these 12 women now organizing a corporation called Migrants du Monde, means migrants of the world, is our the corporation that we work with. And nowadays, we move to organize catalogs. I have the catalog here. But we have organizing fashion parades, in fact. And nowadays, our problem is how to answer all the demands we have. And we have shops and things like that. Look, let me tell you something. My students, in fact, these students that were learning with my Teresa, the weaver, they also begin to have some success when they were able to introduce design, know-how, but first it was very difficult. It was very difficult because they don't know exactly how it works, the loom, and it's very difficult for them to accept that the person that works in the loom could also teach them. This space where there is people with technologies, and also these people just have the know-how to meet them, well, it is a difficult process. Let me tell you that in the end, I could try to answer the questions. What I'm doing, introducing the tradition in the process to develop just good old-fashioned products. Okay, when I was able to understand that somehow it was possible to produce now with ancient know-how, but at the same time with a timeless fashion, perhaps I'm in the good way. The second thing is somehow I have built a bridge between the yesterday and the today, between the old and the new. And this perception that I feel that somehow also I am able to understand the product I've made. I am also to organize it and special to pass on. Perhaps I'm in the good way, and I was able to create this space where know-how technology is meeting the traditional one. Well, this is my issue, and let me try to just to ask you, think about this. Thank you.